All right, seeing as how it's 10 a.m., our room is packed, and we'll call this meeting to order. Each district is represented, 1, 2, and 3. The first item is to discuss possible action regarding the meeting minutes of August 22nd and September 6th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve both.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion clearly passes. Oh, departmental items. Item number 2 is discussion possible action regarding HVAC issues installed on the 9th floor.
Current system has 2 cassettes on either end of the 9th floor that are bad, defective, and no good. We have 2 replacements on site that a contractor can put in for us, but it would require the disassembly of both systems. These cassettes and this work was ordered and encumbered with last fiscal year's funding, which I understand evaporates in October. These systems would require the disassembly of each of those, which means we wouldn't have air conditioning.
Keith, my understanding, you said the money was encumbered for that project. According to the DA's office, what they've told us in the past is if that money is encumbered for that project, the money can stay encumbered and be spent on that project basically into perpetuity. So as long as you make sure that that is not closed out and unencumbered, then that money should be available for that project.
Is that for projects or is that for expenditures within our budget? I know maybe this is far afield. Hey.
Well, what?
Sure. Shoot.
What it amounts to is
Under your chair, there's a surprise.
You're in the audience, like.
but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so you've got a construction project that's not going to finish it. But you can't, if you unencumber it, you put it back in the general fund, you create a debt automatically. So, and you know, if you have the money and you want to buy a 2-year subscription, if you encumber 2 years, keep it encumbered, you can do that. So,
But it can only be used for what you originally encumbered for.
exactly.
Right.
But where I think the disconnect and the concern happens is that the statutes say that a contract should be just for 1 year. So we're all programmed to go on July 1, which is a great thing because everyone remembers at budgeting time, these are my expenses, these are my recurring costs, and everyone automatically does their contracts and encumbers. So what do you have? Are you buying toilet paper?
We do that every day. No, this is for HVAC equipment for the 9th floor.
Why is that?
Because we have to shut the air conditioning systems off to make the repairs. And when the temperature outside is 100 degrees, inside the temperature is 110. And so those offices that live on the 9th floor, it's unbearable to work up there in those conditions. We had to order the equipment. The equipment came in. It's too hot to turn it off. We're ready to install the equipment. We need to do so before the October deadline, whatever that is, or maybe it's not.
What do you need to pay? After October 1.
We'll need to pay for the equipment and for the contractor doing the installation.
Don't unencumber.
You just got to make sure that there's not, what Gretchen said, that there's not an unencumbrance of the money.
I understand. And then make you aware that we're going to have to shut the systems off to accomplish this.
So where's this October 1?
Sandy McKenzie, who routinely takes care of the paperwork, sends the money back that hasn't been spent. And I think the October date is something that is.
Okay, I can't remember if it's exactly October, but the actual, I can't remember. It's in the fall, September, October. So what happens is a lot of people will budget for, say, toilet paper. And so they're guessing how much they'll need during the year. And so if they don't use the entire amount, it should be held out.
She's not marketing.
We're here for Chantel Bosa, please.
Why would we
She's saying,
unencumber
she's
something
answering the question.
without a vote?
Hmm.
Who decides to unencumber? I mean, if BET
Well-
funds, if BET makes a recommendation to budget board funds something, budget board encumbers funds.
We,
OCC encumbers funds.
Well, there's
Yeah.
another rule that
Why is it unilaterally being unencumbered?
well, we had that issue in the past through, and when you mention BET in general, we've had that with where Kelly Thomas has gotten an email requesting, that, hey, all your the monies that you have encumbered need to be unencumbered. And that's happened. And then we still have projects going and it's like, what's going on? So we've requested, at least from her, that before there's any unencumbrance, to let all of us know, hey, I'm going to unencumber this because I've talked to Stacy, I've talked to Keith, and we no longer need that money for those particular projects. But as a verification before the unencumbrance happens, because there has been some significant issues in the past related to unencumbering money.
Oh, definitely. So, did I say it right? He doesn't believe me. Facilities just that.
What you said is correct. So everyone's
you.
having a lot of discussion about projects, but this rule of policy, I think, and we send out notifications during the end of year budget season, is, say for instance, you encumbered money for your copier and you paid all those bills up to date and you still have that money encumbered, you go through checks and balances and you want to close that before the end of the budget season, which is the end of September. So also, say for instance, a vendor didn't send you their June bill yet, and you want to hold that encumbrance open to pay for this June bill, and they haven't sent it, there's rules in place in order for the vendor to send their bills in time, or they will not get paid for that bill. And that's your cutoff that is being kind of discussed.
Speak to the real date subject.
I believe it's September. It's the last day in September.
Why is this?
September 30th or 31st.
So when you tell me that's a real date.
It's a real date. It's part, and I can't speak to law, but I believe it is policy.
It's when the budget is finalized, so that there's got to be a little bit of wiggle room there for bills in June. For the last fiscal year, you don't get them in June, you get them in July, sometimes August, and there's a little bit of maneuverability there. If we don't unencumber by the end of September, then that money is not available to be budgeted this year. It's held. So if it's unencumbered in October or November, then it can't be budgeted until the next year. Generally speaking, that the end of September deadline is for budgeting purposes, and it's for these smaller type transactions that Chantel was talking about. Your bigger projects that we have contracts on and that are ongoing, to Gretchen's point, if we turn around and unencumber that in the middle, then we create a debt. So we've got to be
We
very
have an
careful.
encumbrance in place. I want to make sure that we can accomplish this work and get it on down the road.
You can't.
Thank you.
Just don't unencumber it.
I don't intend to.
It's based really on a desire to do zero base, which does not for long term projects. The money had to be carried over. Usually it can be carried over to you. I think Stacy's got projects that are for your ADUC, right?
Those are separate projects with separate line items. This is an issue and an item within the facilities budget.
But the same principle applies.
Okay, that's great. All right, we're going to turn the air conditioning
Danny,
off on the ninth
did you
floor to
need
make
any,
the repair.
did you? Okay.
Keith, with your last statement, when it's cooler, is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's the idea. Up until this point, we've been struggling, as you know, with temperatures outside. And to shut both systems down up there would be the wrong thing to do unless the temperature outside is cooperating. And it seems that we have those temperatures now. So I feel comfortable doing that. Again, these kinds of repairs take as long as they take. There were not shut-off valves at each cassette put in place so that we could isolate those and repair them and replace them as necessary. So the entire system has to be turned off and dismantled in order to make these repairs.
Well, while you're doing these repairs,
Should we put in isolation valves?
yes,
We might do that.
are you going to need extra funding, or is
No,
there
we'll
going to be?
we'll do that, and we've got that taken care of for these two cassettes. Oh, you want to do them for all? Okay. I'll ask the contractor what that would cost additionally to do so. That's the right thing to do. So
Is this work going to be done during the day or nights and weekends?
it'll be during the day.
Unit,
I'm sorry?
portable AC units.
We have several of them up there, and also we've got an air handling unit on the 10th floor that we have ducted down into the space. But, you know, when the temperatures are high, it's those corner offices where you have two exposures, north and west or south and west, that really start to heat up.
Well, it's going to be low to mid 90s this week, so
The low temperatures at night help us.
that's why I was wondering if you're going to be doing the work at night
No, that won't
when it's
matter.
not occupied.
No, I mean, we'll just get it. I'm ready to get it done. We'll get it done.
Any other questions on item number 2?
No.
Is there a motion?
Motion to proceed as discussed, or accept the report.
Second.
Both.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And push buttons. Motion passes. Item number 3. Discussion about the courthouse elevator upgrades. Before we get started, Keith, I got one real question. Did you submit a project to the ARPA consultants about opening the other elevator shaft and removing everything for social distancing?
Yes.
And
I
what did they do with
submitted,
that?
I submitted, well, I don't know how much history you want. We have an additional elevator shaft that when the building was designed was intended to be used at some later date. They anticipated the amount of traffic that the courthouse might get. At the time of the infrastructure upgrade in 2011, the architects decided to use that, and we allowed this, unfortunately. We allowed the architect to use that empty elevator shaft to locate chilled water lines, steam lines, hot water lines, heavy electrical necessary. That was done so because it was easy. It was an open shaft. Instead of using the regular paths that were used for those services, the elevator shaft was put in place, or that infrastructure was put in place within the elevator shaft. So to your question, I suggested to ARPA that we relocate all of those mechanical, electrical services from the elevator shaft to some other location. We install a brand new elevator in that shaft to help with the traffic patterns and the traffic flow. Also, I asked for a brand new elevator for the jail elevator. And I don't know where that's at today.
Yeah. I
So
just wanted to make sure that those were projects that were submitted, and I'll follow up with the consultants on those to see.
we had a conversation with them last week. They're going to be here this week, I think.
When did you submit those?
They should be here tomorrow.
That was,
When they asked for submission.
yeah, at the onset.
'Cause I don't remember ever seeing that on the report.
That was so I learned about this before I left last week. And when I learned about it, I went back and I looked, and I did not see anywhere in any update, anything that I had where I saw this project. Because not only does that project exist in the courthouse, it also exists in this building. And if we have the ability right now to use those funds to remodel existing elevators, it seems to me that we could place a new one in a shaft that's already done. So
Yeah, the only elevator projects I recall on that ARPA list was juvenile and the detention center. I don't recall anything else. So
I sat in the ARPA meeting there and had an exhaustive list, and I know there were some duplications that, for instance, the court clerk and Stacy had that made their way onto that list. But the elevators and other projects were submitted.
So do you have other projects other than the elevators that you submitted that are not on the list?
Yes.
Okay, if you could, I would like to know what those consist of, and then I would like to know why they're not on the list. Because we have items on the list that they said out the box did not qualify. So I don't think they were taking anything and saying, oh, that doesn't qualify, so we're not even putting it on the list in the beginning. They would put, in my mind, they put everything on that list. So I don't know why these wouldn't.
This was
be
in
on
the
there.
early stages of development. So
all right. So
What was the money tied into that elevator project? Both the jail and the,
I think it was $3.5 million or so, if memory serves. And I turned in a list that was almost $17 million, or went over that list with the consultants.
and that was just the courthouse and the detention center. That did not include this building, correct?
No, it did include, my conversations with them included this building. It included the courthouse. I can't.
For $3.5 million.
No, I think the jail elevator that he was talking about is the jail elevator in the courthouse.
Yes.
Not down at the detention center.
Elevators for this building. This building also has an empty elevator shaft. So, but as far as the courthouse and elevators over there are concerned, relocation of the mechanical electrical equipment, installation of a new elevator in the empty shaft, and replacement of the elevator that serves the jail in the courthouse.
Okay.
Among other things.
Another update?
Yes, I met with Kone Management last week, and there has been a revision to the schedule. They called initially for work to be completed in June of 2023. They're still working on the first elevator, and they have extended or revised the schedule for completion in August, September of 2023. So within the course of their work here, they've lost 3 months, primarily due to personnel availability, scheduling of materials, scheduling of people, and then holidays and time off for their personnel. Thank you.
It would make sense that there would not be any unencumbrance of any funds without notifying the individual that was managing those funds, but it seems to happen.
I would expect further delays on that, honestly. They're doing a pretty good job. They keep people here, but it's technical work. And if you've been to the 9th floor, you can get a bird's eye view of what they're dealing with and what they're having to do.
so the new projected time frame for that first elevator be ready is when?
The new projection, they call for a completion in the revised schedule of the 1st of November
Of this year?
of this year.
Okay.
They'll begin work on the second car according to the revised schedule in April of 2023.
Why a delay of 4 months?
I can't answer that. I'll ask.
Yeah,
It may be shipment of equipment, the sequencing of materials.
yeah, let's
What I
ask
would expect.
because, I mean, that's,
My understanding was one was going to open, the next one was going to shut down, but that's a 5-month window.
I think that's probably right.
6, if they said November 1.
yeah, it's 5 to 6 months, and December's kind of slow time for our elevators. It'd be a great time for people to be in replacing an elevator.
I think if they have the resources, material, people, all of that kind of thing, that'd be a good time too. But as I understand it, the reason for the delay here is personnel and timelines on materials. So I would expect the same thing on the second elevator.
So if they start the second elevator in April, they're going to be able to do 2 more elevators from April until September. If their completion
They'll
is
modernize
September
the second
23rd.
car. He calls, maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe he calls for a completion of the second floor. I think I'm wrong. Completion of the second floor by April of 2023.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, that's right.
To start the third one, and then the third one would be
Mhm.
complete by September.
He's got a ship date. He's got more information here on the first elevator, the timeline for the first elevator, and it's really unclear. But I would have to guess. I don't think they're going to take 4 or 5 months off. They'll take some time off during the holidays, I'm sure. But they call for the. It says modernization of car 2. The duration is 20 weeks, so that's got to be back to back.
Have you let them know that you have requested potential funding for the additional elevator over there and additional elevator here?
Yeah, that's where I'd gotten the figures.
Okay, well, so that way they can start potentially planning us into their schedule.
Mhm.
Because if we do use ARPA money for those 2, well, actually 3, if we do the jail elevator, we got timelines there.
Well, they're familiar with how we work, and so we may say we're going to do something, and then it's some time beyond that a decision is actually made. That was the case in this effort, and I was quite frankly surprised that they held the dollar figure that they did while the decision was being made. So they're happy to work with us, and they do a good job. They haven't.
Well, but we have separate funding for those.
I understand.
ARPA funding for these others has a time limit, or
I understand.
general fund allocation on these others do not have a time
The only
limit.
conversations I've had about the other elevator upgrades here had to do with pricing and what could be expected given the time it takes to make decisions ordinarily and the way the county moves. So they're aware, they're willing to work with us, and so I'm appreciative of that. They do a good job with what they have to work with.
Any further questions?
Motion to receive report.
There's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion clearly passes. Item number 4. Anything new on vicinity besides the bill going up? No.
No.
No action needed. Item number 5, discussion possible action for an update on the capital projects specific to TIP 2, and that's it.
Working with a consultant for the design for new space for purchasing, so we can get them up to 3. Make space for both on one.
Okay. Oh, is there a motion? Motion to receive the update.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 And mash button just for Cody. And item number 6 is an update on tip 2 and tip 2A.
No
budget.
changes.
No action. Needed discussion, possible action regarding the capital improvements list. Are there any changes?
Yeah, I upgraded the list, the old list, the way you're used to seeing it. And I also created a spreadsheet in a different way. District wanted to ask to see things, more information they've been getting. And I think you all received that, and it was attached to this agenda. The thing to note,
Well, the old one's attached. Not your
those the
new.
new one.
No. Yep. Okay. Sorry.
The thing to probably note on the new one, we've got a category called projects anticipated. There's 12 projects there. 9 of the 12 are awaiting cost centers, so nothing's happening. 1 of the 12 is waiting a legal resolution, so nothing's happening. And 2 of the 12 are moving.
So the
No, can't cut a purchase order yet.
can't cut a purchase order, can't encumber it until there's a cost center. Who creates cost centers?
You have to ask Chantel's probably the best one to answer all that.
Chantel, can you create cost centers?
That would be the budget board.
There's some issues of why that's not moving to the budget board though.
Well, Stacy, these are kind of some projects that you and or Keith are managing. Can you send an email to the clerk and make sure that there's an agenda item on next Thursday's budget board to create a cost center to reflect the projects that are needing cost centers?
I'll do that, yeah.
Thank you.
Wasn't there some questions that you guys were asking Accenture before you started cutting purchase orders on all these?
I believe this is already in the works. In the last conversation I had with Danny is that that plan is in place for the budget board meeting to make sure all approved projects to date are addressed at the next budget board meeting.
Okay, so Stacy, maybe you send an email to make sure that the projects that you have in mind that have been approved to date matches with the list that Danny has so that we make sure and get all of them on.
Very good.
Well, I guess with that in mind, so emergency ops and the new sheriff, those are all those, is that considering those dollars coming over from ARPA?
The emergency ops was approved in the ARPA, yes, but the sheriff's office was not at this point. That's got to come from the bond funds, which hasn't been sold.
Well, isn't there some dollars from PBA that's been set aside?
How much?
I keep hearing the word all of it, but I'm not sure how much that entails.
So they earmarked funds in the PBA reserve to be used for a sheriff's office. We also took the one-time allotment of $10 million from ARPA for our potential lost revenues or projected lost revenues. It does not need to come from the county bond. We are time sensitive. We can move forward. Now, if that's a budget board and a PBA board,
I think the PBA
Issue,
would have to take some action to transfer the money.
well, they're going to have to not only transfer, but they're also going to have to unearmark, if you will.
That's right. I think the agenda item read all encumbered, all unallocated and unencumbered funds to be set aside for the sheriff's location.
which to date
I don't know the value of that.
is close to
I don't know the value.
7.5.
I don't know the value of that.
Again, you're back to the issue of a cost center you can kind of purchase order from, so you gotta go through the steps. The
Yeah,
PBA
and-
probably has to take an action, then the budget board has to take an action.
Regardless of whether or not where that money comes from, that cost center needs to be developed, period. So there's no reason not to create a cost center.
Right, yeah, you can always, if we don't have money to move now, you move it later into that account. That's one less thing you have to do down the road.
Yep.
I agree, yeah.
Along with that email,
Yeah, I mean,
we need to include a new jail construction. Which I guess at the end of the day, I mean, there was gonna be discussions of BET in reference to the interest from ARPA dropping down into that cost center, but if the cost center isn't there,
Yeah, we can't drop any money into the cost center yet because there's not one created. So I think we do need one created, and we do need money fairly expeditiously put into the sheriff office cost center that we were just discussing for architecture and potential engineering fees. I mean, the full 12 million that you have on here, I mean, I don't think that's needed quite yet. If we can get it over there, that's great. But we at least need money over there for, so we can start doing plans and develop an actual cost estimate. So then we know how much more we need to put over there. Because the 12 is just a guess at this point, right?
Right.
Is it educated or is it a wag?
It's swag.
was it?
It was based on a similar type project that was about a year ago. So you got some inflation now.
Yeah. So I think we definitely need to find the money for architect media. Now, was there an architect already approved on that project?
Yes, we've already conducted the interviews and selected.
Okay, just have not awarded because money's not there yet.
I think it's awarded. We haven't contracted.
You haven't contracted.
That's
Okay.
the money.
How much was that?
We don't have a number yet. We've got to negotiate that fee.
Who's the architect again?
Sorry?
Who was the architect?
Alford.
All right, so you're going to make sure that
The cost center gets set up.
I would anticipate, or I would think I would want to ensure that the cost centers are put in place for each and every one of the anticipated projects. You said there were 12. I mean, that's just me. ARPA, PBA, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. I would make sure if you're going to do one, you might as well get them all done. Because again, creating a cost center is no big deal. Evidently. Any other questions?
No, I will just say real quick, Stacy, I really appreciate you working on this spreadsheet and putting the information out there that we needed. This was some stuff that we were kind of struggling internally at District 1, trying to figure out where everything was. And we asked you to get us this information, and you did it in a nice format that's easy to read, and I think it'll be beneficial for the group moving forward. So thanks to you and your staff for taking the time to do that.
and include a line item for a new jail construction.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions or statements? Is there a motion to
Motion to receive report.
If there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And please push your button. It pops up. And motion passes 3-0. Item number 8, Discussion possible action regarding transfer, maintenance, and repair of security infrastructure equipment from the sheriff to. Is there anything new on this, Keith? No action needed. Discussion of possible action regarding the hiring of a grant writing consultant. This is a brilliant idea. Are we doing a consultant or are we doing somebody in house?
This would be a new hire.
Yep.
It was present.
What?
It was discussed at BET regarding potential funding for a position. If all this works out, the last infrastructure meeting, Stacy and I were tasked to kind of work together to look at the different options, what's available currently, and to work on job description. So I did draft a job description, and after talking with BET, just kind of had some instruction to work with the HR office on refining that and possibly hiring if budget board were to approve the funding for a new hire position. The reason that's the direction rather than bringing in a consultant is because your projects are not just road and bridge. We have resources with with road and bridge firms that have these services. But if grants are going to serve other capacities, I have not been able to find grant writing specific professions to hire and contract out. Those are hired services. So that's all the information I kind of have.
Yeah, and the thought on that we had discussed, hiring in-house versus hiring a company to come in and, take on certain asks that we have with the Infrastructure Act. There's going to be a huge uptick in governments trying to seek out and receive those grants. I think if we have somebody that's experienced and that's going to be fighting for us every day to write as competitive as possible grants, that we might be more successful than somebody that's working for a multitude of different entities that may be competing for the same dollars. So I appreciate all your work on this. I think it'll be extremely beneficial moving forward. BET did include in their recommendation funding of this position. Is basically 9 months worth of salary and 6 months worth of benefits. Well, 6 months of insurance and then 9 months of FICA and whatnot. So
The recommendation was funded or funded at a certain level?
well, we looked at the numbers that Chantel had presented. She thought it was to get somebody. If we brought somebody in house, we could look at two different types of people. One that was just doing the creative writing piece, trying to get us the grants, and then once they finish, that process of getting that grant, just moving on to the next, or you get somebody that is doing that, but they are also working on the back end tracking to make sure that we're staying in compliance with that grant, meeting all of the requirements from a reporting standpoint and all that. There was about a $10,000 or so difference in that particular job based on Chantel's research. So we had, in our budget recommendation, it's for the latter, somebody that's doing both of those pieces, and it's looking at a $60,000 a year position. Now, if during her process she finds that she can, do that a little more economical, or if she needs more money for that, I think she can always come back and ask for additional if needed.
Chantel, where'd you get the $60,000?
There were different positions that are posted. The one that 60,000 is Oklahoma State Department of Health had a grant writer position at 60,000. That was the highest one I found. The others were lower than that, but the job description differs. So this is what I presented to BET, what I found, the different examples Like some of the tribes are hiring this as well earlier this year, for not to the extent and then for lower amounts. What I did also say to BET was, given the current employment market or whatever you want to call it, I don't know how this will play out, what the demand will be once it's actually advertised. And all I can do is whatever the results are to bring them back to BET in hopes that we have someone qualified to apply.
I think modeling ourselves after a state agency like the Oklahoma State Department of Health is probably a bad idea. They get what they pay for, and so do most state agencies. So
It would be the pleasure of the board.
I think we can also supplement if we're chasing infrastructure funds with highway funds. There's probably a little bit of clarification that ought to be sought in that, but
Yeah, there was some discussion at that as well.
$20,000 at this thing would be nothing.
Yeah, there was discussion about potentially funding it through some of those grants as well. So I think right now we're starting off at that dollar amount, and if I would hope, and Chantel, if that is approved by budget board and you're going through the process of trying to find somebody, that if there is, you know, some applicants that you would think would be very, very good, but you may need some more, that you would come back and ask, and we could look at increasing that if necessary.
So this is something I've talked about pretty extensively and quite a bit. We've never had this position. We've never really, I know in Commissioner Mon's office, we kind of looked at it and talked about it for a little while. This was something, assuming that I'm still here in January, I was going to hire on staff regardless of whether. Where is this individual going to office? Who are they reporting to?
Well, the what we had discussed, and you know, budget board can make that call if they would like, but with the thought that this would be somebody that would represent the entire county, that the best place for it would be in purchasing. The whole process of grants and procurement kind of run hand in hand, and so purchasing, regardless of where this person would be positioned, they're going to have to work hand in hand with purchasing anyway. And purchasing has staff that I think would be able to be a great asset to this individual and be able to serve as a backup role. And hopefully somebody in Chantel's office can learn the process a little bit. That way, as we get more and more proficient in this, and hopefully more and more successful, that we need more help writing grants, because we see so much out there. And I think with a work group like what Chantel has, they would be able to help support each other, back each other up, and hopefully grow the skill sets of the individuals in there. So it just makes sense with the purchasing office being a budget board office that represents all of the elected officials and all of the entities that would be potentially utilizing this individual.
As a starting place.
Right.
That was also discussed in BET. Got to start somewhere. So that was the amount, the job description, the location, all would just be almost a trial, if you will, for a time to see how it's working, what the responses are with grants, what the activity looks like.
Yeah, so Chantel and I mean, we've been discussing this for a couple years or maybe more now, and kind of gone back and forth. Stacy's been doing some grants out of his office. So is David Barnes and the sheriff's office. Those are primarily the grants that we see come across. But Stacy's office, I mean, you guys are you're geared into the, roads and bridges and, the planning and that kind of stuff. And if we doing it here, I think there's more backup capabilities and also a little broader set of viewpoints on looking at different things. The other option would be to do kind of like what we did with Kelly Thomas and have just a BOCC position and sit it under HR. But if we do that, there's really not a whole lot of backup there to be able to help that individual to the extent that they might need some support, munis support, that kind of stuff up front. It makes sense to put it in purchasing, but I don't think necessarily that that's the only option, but that's what we had discussed.
Chantel and Stacy, does that allow, for the third floor office space, does that allow for more staff?
It's gonna have to.
Right. My intent was always in the initial design to have some flexibility. And Cody asked me the same thing. I think we could make it work for one more personnel. Now, growth in 3 more, in 4 more, I don't think that's would be real easy to do.
Yeah, frankly, I've never envisioned this being in somebody else's department. I've always thought that this was the starting point is probably good. I think what we will find rather quickly is that as we start doing these grants, you're going to find people that are highly specialized in doing certain aspects of grants and with certain aspects of the industry. So hiring an individual with the mindset that I think eventually it's going to need to be a BOCC department, probably not more than 3 people, but it has the potential of becoming a very good thing for the county and a very, very busy office that will have to work with every other office in this building for sure. So,
Yeah, and if we start off in a situation to where they're with Chantel, with people that understand Munis and that system and can train that individual, and then maybe while they're working that, somebody in Chantel's office kind of takes to it and, gets, really good, and then we've got a couple people, and maybe we do want to bring another one on, then you've got help and support, and maybe you can pull that out and have them on their own. Just in the beginning, bringing somebody into the county without any potential knowledge in Munis and everything else, it may be a little more difficult for them to begin with. But yeah, down the road, that might be a good way to look at it, is to pull it into its own department. But
Did you need any direction from this board, or is it already been hammered out via BET?
Regarding the funding, it's been discussed with BET. I think at this level with this board, it was if everything was good or your questions were answered, that the next step would be that I would start working with the HR office. I can give everybody a copy of the draft. That's what my next step would be to work with HR on the specifics of a job description, but I can offer that to you guys as well for review.
My thoughts would be, start working with HR and see if they have any pools that they can work from and move forward. And I'll entertain that as a motion if that's what we need.
if that's your motion, I'll second.
there's a motion and a second on the floor. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Citizen participation. Anybody signed up? Anybody online? Shaking heads means no. Board comments. District 2.
Not at this time.
District 1.
No, thank you.
None for 3. Any new business? Keith, Stacy, nobody? Good deal. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Seeing no objection, we stand adjourned. All right, it's 10:51. We'll call the meeting of the Public Advisory Committee meeting together. Meeting was properly posted on September 8th, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for August 22nd of 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And push your button. Item number 2. Discussion possible action regarding an ACB building envelope project. Keith, anything new? No action. Wow. Any citizen participation? Seeing none. Any board comments?
I would like to make board comments
District
on
1.
this meeting. I just want to bring it to your attention. As you know, floors 3 and 4 overnight in the Investors Capitol building are secured entrance due to no security in that building. On the 3rd floor, the men's restroom that is badge access only is we've had significant issues there since we moved in, specifically in a stall that creates a health hazard. We have notified the other entities that we've allowed to use that facility, other than District 1 and District 3. On multiple occasions, if anybody wants to see pictures, those are available. If it does not get taken care of and under control, then next time this board meets, we will be looking to limit access significantly to the men's restroom on that floor to District 1 and District 3 only. We do not want to do that. We've given every opportunity for people to take care of things themselves, to include putting extra cleaning supplies in there. But if people will not take care of making sure that everybody is in a clean and safe environment, then we will have to take further actions. That's my board comments.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Any new business? Seeing none. Is there much to adjourn?
So moved.
Seeing no objections, we